Welcome, Slayer the Alchemist, and on today's episode of Beginner's Guide to Accept. This is for people who maybe are just getting into metal. You've heard the name Accept, you don't know where to start, you don't really know anything about the band, or maybe you do know something about the band, but you're just looking to sort of fill in some gaps and learn a little bit more about them. I'm going to be using my whiteboard, and I'm going to be giving you first a general history, and then I will be going through giving you an idea of where to start in their catalog and how to proceed through their catalog. Now, this is a very general beginner's guide. I'm not going to be going super in depth. I've done 3 videos going in depth into Restless and Wild, Balls to the Wall, and Eat the Heat. I will leave links to those videos down below. Again, this is just a quick little video for people to get a general overview of the band and a way to proceed through their catalog. So here we go. Accept is a German heavy metal band. They released their first album in 1979. They're still active today. They've released 16 studio albums. They have their 17th studio album getting ready to be released soon as of the making of this video. I would break the band up into 2 main eras. There's 3 eras of the band, and they go by the singers. They've had 3 different singers in the band, but I'd say the 2 big eras are the Udo era from 79 to 86. Udo would leave, come back, 93 to 96. And the Mark Tornillo era, he joined the band in 2010, and he is the current vocalist in the band. In between, when Udo was gone, David Reese joined the band for the 1989 album Eat the Heat, but being that he only had 1 album with the band, I don't give that era the same amount of weight that I give the Mark and Udo era of the band. Okay, let's start with the Udo era. I would break the Udo era into 3 different categories. The early years from 1979 to 1981. This is where they hadn't quite found their sound yet. They were a bit more hard rock at times, experimenting with some different things. You heard some metal elements there, but they hadn't totally landed on their sound yet. The albums released during this period are the self-titled Accept album, I'm a Rebel, and Breaker. Next, I would call their classic era from 1982 to 1986. Every band has a classic era. This is where they experience maybe their best-selling record, their biggest song. From Accept, for me, it's from 1982 to 86, and it starts with Restless and Wild, which is a metal classic, early speed metal album, laying the blueprint for speed metal. Balls to the Wall, which has their big hit, the title track, Metal Heart, which sold pretty well. I had a video, and you were on MTV during that era, and then Russian Roulette. Now, Udo would leave. David Reese would do the Eat the Heat record, which is a bit more... It has some heavy elements to it, but it's also kind of melodic and, maybe sounding a little bit like that time period. Udo will come back in the 90s, 93 to 96. I'm calling that the reunion era, reunion with Udo era. And they would release the albums Objection Overruled, Death Row, and Predator. These albums for me they're heavy, but they don't have the catchiness of the classic era of the band. The band would be inactive from 1996 until Mark Tornillo joined the group in 2010. He's still their current vocalist. His first album with the band would be Blood of the Nations, and Stalingrad, Blind Rage, The Rise of Chaos, Too Mean to Die. And as of the making of this video, they're getting ready to release the album Humanoid. Okay, there's just a general overview of Accept. We're going to move on now to how I would advise someone to move through the Accept catalog, where to start and where to go next. Okay, so how would I advise someone to make their way through the Accept catalog? I would recommend to them that they go straight down the middle here to start, and start at the top and begin with what most people consider to be their 2 classic albums. That would be Balls to the Wall and Restless and Wild. Balls to the Wall has the anthemic title track. They had a video for that song that got a lot of play. Restless and Wild, the album that came out before Balls to the Wall, is an early metal classic, an early example of speed metal. Then I would move down and I would do Blood of the Nations and Stalingrad, the first two albums with Mark Tornillo on them. Their current vocalist, Stalingrad, my favorite from his era of the band, the just great album. Blood of the Nations, his first album with them. Then I would go down and I would finish out the classic Udo era with Metal Heart and Russian Roulette. Now, after you finish those, I would finish out the Mark Tornillo era, Rise of, and I put them roughly in this order for me: Rise of Chaos, Too Mean to Die, and Blind Rage. If after Blood of Nations of Stalingrad, you just can't get enough of that era, then you can move over to that era first and then circle back around, finish out the classic era, Metal Heart, Russian Roulette. After you finish those out, I would move over and do the 90s Udo stuff. Maybe you're somebody that discovered metal in the 90s. So this era might appeal to you. Objection Overruled, Death Row, and Predator. These albums just aren't quite as catchy for me as the classic era was. Then maybe circle back around, finish out the Mark Tornillo era. Now, if you listen to Balls to the Wall and Restless and Wild, and you kind of feel like, you know what, I'm just not into this kind of metal, I would encourage you to go and check out their early years records. Maybe you're more of a 70s hard rock guy, a 70s metal type of sound. I would check out these albums, and I would sort of go backwards through that era. I would start with Breaker, then I would go to I'm a Rebel, then I would go to the self-titled album Accept. If you listen to Balls to the Wall, Restless and Wild, and you kind of feel like, yeah, this is still a little too heavy for me, I'm kind of more of an MTV 80s metal type of guy, LA, that type of feel. I will go to the Dave Reese album, the one album that they did with him, Eat the Heat. Now, if you go down the middle and you finish these two out and you just want to finish them all out, then yeah, go back and listen to everything. But that's how I would proceed. I would go down the middle here and then just veer off by your personal taste. You really love the Mark Tornillo era, go finish out his catalog or finish out the Udo catalog. If you're somebody who leans more towards hard rock, it feels like you're not. If you don't like these two albums, if you feel like these two albums are too metal for you, you're probably not going to like these. That's why you may want to check out these ones here out on the edge.